support, other candidates in our area. And yeah, we're about to just go into each of our stories as soon as we get this last little technical thing worked out. Until then, maybe me and Perla, we can just kind of chat for a second while we're getting technical stuff done. So, hey, Perla, what is something that you learned from a constituent recently that you didn't know?
Oh man, so we've been knocking on doors for months now, right? Years, if you want to be technical. Since 2023, I started knocking doors in North Texas. But recently, we were in a neighborhood by Oakhurst, so Central Fort Worth, right, Central Tarrant County. And when we knocked on this door, it was Spanish English speaker. But she said, "Look at that post over there; it's falling down." And I was like, "Oh man," in my head, I'm like, "How do I fix this problem? Who do I reach out to? How can I get that problem solved for her?" And then she told me, she goes, "All of my neighbors are scared to report that post because they don't know if they're either going to come get targeted or if they're even going to get help." And so that hit my heart, right? We're knocking doors, we're going to work, we're taking our kids to school, but you have people who are scared in our community just to ask for help. And then, you get to the fluent houses and they're doing fantastic. They went to university, have bachelor's, master's, doctorates. We just have such a diverse community in Tarrant County that's been a good experience, humbling experience. You get to see just different communities and different day to day. So I have enjoyed canvassing neighborhoods and businesses because you get to meet our community and our neighbors and everybody that functions and society with us. So it's been a good time. Love it. Zeeshan, you almost ready over there? Almost. Still working on it. All good. I'm gonna also, I'll even into some different stuff that I've been learning. So I don't know if any of y'all knew, I'm sure y'all have. So Dinosaur Valley State Park. This is, where all the dino footprints are, right? It's near Glen Rose area, so not too far from the DFW area, right? And so they're about to put a data center over near the Dinosaur State Park. And right now, again, you can see some of the environmental issues with some of these data centers, also the noise pollution, and even just sucking the water out of the ground, and the electrical energy usage is driving all our costs up, right? And so again, being able to talk to different constituents about the different things they're doing in the community to change those things. So even Sierra Club put out something that gives you instructions to give a public comment, right? And so, and different constituents have so many good ideas of how they're affecting or making change in their own areas. So yeah, that's been really cool to see too. So since we're already talking about different constituent stories that we've been seeing, and what's something that you learned more recently from the constituents and shows over here. There we go.
Well, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, everyone that's here in person and those that are joining us on the internet next to our very difficult process of getting this set up. My name is Zeeshan Hafeez. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm running for Congress in Texas, 33rd Congressional District. Ellie, I think there's a story that just stays with me, which is when I went to the Dollar Tree and I was checking out the Dollar Tree and I thought, let me talk to the person who's just helped me found something. I was in a rush to get some Scotch tape so I could put up some signs. And she told me exactly where to go, got me in and out of the class. And, how are you doing? And she seemed very tired. And I asked her, tell me a little bit about yourself. And she said, I'm a single mother, I have a son. The only reason I'm able to take care of him is because I live with my parents. And I asked her, how much do you make? What's your salary? It's okay for me to ask. She said, I make $8.25 an hour. And which is just above the minimum wage here in Texas. And she is really going through an affordability crisis because that's not the only job she works. She works a full-time job at Dollar Tree, and then she has other jobs on the side as well, just to make ends meet. And the reality is That is the case for more and more Texans. More and more Texans that I talk to all across the district are struggling with this affordability crisis. And we have too many politicians in Washington that are bought by the billionaires. And I think today's session is about taking Texas back from the billionaires. Well, we need to take America back from the billionaires. Because the reality is the billionaires don't care about these hardworking folks that are working at the Dollar Tree that are barely making things ends meet, making just above the minimum wage. And that's why I'm fighting so ardently on behalf of workers' rights. We need a real living wage in this country. And that means at least $20 to $25 an hour. Anything below that is not going to get the job done. And minimum wage is not being increased for 17 years. We have runaway inflation. The cost of living is out of control. And people are struggling. And so we need a government that's actually going to take care of the people.
Thank you for sharing, Randall. And so now that we're all here together, and I wanted to first start out by just asking each of us, y'all's story. Like, where did you grow up? What got you to this place here? Because I know a lot of times at these different Democratic events, here's your 2-minute spiel where you can say, I care about Universal Healthcare and those things, but we're not really kind of getting to know some of the candidates who are running, right? So, Perla, I'd love to just hear what's your story and what are the reasons you are running?
Thank you. So I was born on a farm in Oklahoma. I'm a first generation immigrant. My parents are from Chihuahua, Mexico. My dad was able to get his citizenship through Ronald Reagan's immigration reform in the 80s. And if you had an agricultural job, you were basically getting a benefactor, right? They would sign that you're a legit worker, you're improving the agriculture and the land in America. So you deserve a chance at citizenship because you're giving back. So I'm blessed to be born on Red Dirt in Oklahoma with my citizenship paper because I didn't have to struggle through the citizenship test. I remember my mom took the citizenship test and it was in English only. She only spoke Spanish. And so she had to study the Constitution. And there's over like 150 questions that you have to study to get your citizenship test that you're a loyal citizen, right? So I just remember studying in the 80s for the citizenship test. So I kind of knew there was barriers that other people had to cross that I didn't cross. But I grew up in Dodge City, Kansas. I was a paralegal there. So I started an immigration law firm, moved to family law, we did civil litigation, a little bit of criminal, a lot of business. Started LLCs. So definitely always been a small business advocate, family advocate. The attorney I worked for was a social worker first. So we were very driven by the best interest of the child, the best interest of the family, the best interest of the community, right? Because we're dealing with judges, with teachers, with social workers, with attorneys, with everybody, with doctors for the well-being of this child. And so when we moved here to Fort Worth in 2018 and I saw this doctors, I'm like, this feels like home because Dodge City, Kansas is Western galore. We have Dodge City Days, which is just weeks of country songs or artists, rodeo, barbecues. And so when I came to Fort Worth, I was like, oh my God, this is where I grew up my entire life. And I would love the tourism to be the same because they make millions every year. And Fort Worth, we could definitely capitalize on selling Western, right? Western vibes, we're the Wild West. We literally are in the Wild West when you talk about our elected officials and our legislatures and all the laws that they're trying to pass in Texas is literally the Wild West. So that's a little bit about my upbringing. I was a precinct chair and nobody was going to challenge this far right extremist who was running for House District 93. I said, absolutely not. And if nobody was going to, enter the contest, I said, put my name down. So last cycle for 2024, so since 2023, I've been knocking doors, engaging communities, hosting social events, canvassing businesses, helping any chance to get. But this last year in 2025 with the Divisible 12, we were able to strategize and leadership behind all the rallies, the No King rallies. In June, we had over 5,000 people show up, and in October, we had over 10,000 people show up. So imagine if we can get those thousands of people who come to this one event to share their ideas to the polls, right? But this is just a different level of engagement. Here in Sarah County, we're suffering from jail deaths. We've had over 76 with Sheriff Bill Wayborn. That is not only trafficking, that is criminal negligence, right? We're letting people die because he doesn't have the skills to keep them alive. But we also need to support public health, mental health, juvenile services, everything that we can do before people hit the system, right? If we can get them the assessments done, treatments, they would not be dying in their jails, but they're not equipped to handle that. So that's why I'm running for county commissioner. We are bleeding money through lawsuits. Every single death that we have under this administration is millions of dollars that we have to litigate, protecting the county, one, from the liability, right? This is a liability that when many people die under our care. So stop bleeding with the lawsuits. I want to fix the roads, because I'm sure everybody here has hit a pothole in Tarrant County more than once. I'm sure your car's a little shaky. So we need to widen the roads before all of these, everything comes in. We're getting a lot of new growth, new development, which is amazing, right? Economy. But at the same time, so we never widened the roads before we had that. And so we're reaching bottlenecks. We're funneling. We're waiting. We're having trains stop our commutes. So we definitely, infrastructure is part of the responsibility for county commissioners. So they're just not focused on the right things. And the last thing is fair elections. Again, as a paralegal, just studying the law. I love to do legal research. I love to read journal entries. I love to see how the judges are going to, decide these types of cases. So I'm very, very good at legal research. I'm very good at reviewing contracts. This is part of the commissioner's job, is reviewing the county budgets and the contracts on top of the infrastructure, on top of just managing the county, right? So just a little bit about me and why I'm passionate, the things I've been doing, and I just appreciate you coming out to Tarrant County, because these are things that we all face, right, under different communities, but we just don't know that we have them in common, because we didn't grow up the same place. We don't look the same, right? We have different families, different schools. But if we're all uniform on the days that affect us on a day-to-day basis, and this is why it's so important that you elect, that you pay attention to your local elections, because these are the people who make the decisions and the policies and the laws that affect us every single day. So thank you for that question. Next question.
So, similar to you in some ways, Perla, I would say that my family came here for the search of the American dream. And one thing that I would say is we might not look exactly alike, but we're similar in many ways. And we have been otherized in similar ways as well, especially recently. My family came here in search of the American dream. My dad had nothing. He created a community health clinic, and he achieved his version of the American dream through hard work. My political origin story started in 2001. That was my freshman year of college. And college is supposed to be this amazing time where you go and find yourself, and you do all these amazing things, and it's supposed to be the best time of your life. But a great tragedy happened in my freshman year of college. That was 9/11. 9/11 was a great tragedy, not only for this country, but for the entire world. And a lot of innocent lives were lost on that day. A lot of innocent lives were lost after that day. But also, the fact that the otherization occurred at such a new level. The hate, the vitriol, the increase in white supremacy, things that we're seeing here today happened at that time. And I got involved in the political process. I joined the Democratic Party. I joined the NAACP. We created Sarasota Openly versus Racism. We created a Gender and Diversity Center at my college. We worked on finding ways to build bridges to a multi-faith council, interfaith council, to work on interfaith work. I was very heavily involved in the anti-war movement, and just got involved in any single way that I could. I decided to study poli-sci. I decided I wanted to go to Georgetown and learn about public policy, because I wanted to make a difference. I didn't want to be on the sidelines. I didn't want to be that other that just pushed aside. Because from one day I was getting smiles, and those smiles turned into frowns. And then those frowns turned into apprehension. And then those apprehensive faces started to call me a terrorist. And that was the reality, not just for me, but for many other people all across the country. And it was a very sad time. But I got my law degree in Georgetown. I worked at the Harrison Institute of Public Policy in Washington, D.C., where I worked on labor and workers' rights with the AFL-CIO, the International Labor Organization, because I was passionate about workers and about the workers' cause. My campaign now, the sort of arc that continues, I think the next major date that was an eye-opening day for me, at least, was October 7th. Once again, a major tragedy that occurred. Many innocent lives were lost on that day. But then think about all the hundreds of thousands of lives that have been lost since then. And a genocide that's being committed on our nation, a genocide that's being committed with our taxpayer dollars. a genocide that has also led to the starvation of the people. And so for me, that was the other side of this arm that said, hey, you have to go do something about this. And as I looked around and I saw this affordability crisis occurring in my country, my neighbors are struggling to pay their rent, pay for their groceries, pay for their prescription drugs. They're struggling just to make ends meet. And our country, on the meanwhile, is focused on attacking places like Venezuela. Our country has declared war on 9 different countries in the last year without congressional approval, without the clear and present danger to the United States. And it's not our country that's doing it, it's Donald Trump. And the reality is Donald Trump has otherized and declared war on so many communities. He's declared war on my community. He's declared war on your community. He's declared war on women. He's declared war on immigrants. He's declared war on the Black and brown communities. He has launched ICE. ICE, which does not discriminate between if you're my shade of brown or your shade of brown. If you're a shade of brown, you're going to be targeted. You're going to be brutalized. You're going to be beaten. And you might get murdered on the streets. And I think that is why I'm taking some bold stances. Like, it's no longer just time to abolish ICE, it's time to prosecute and abolish ICE. We must end this institution that's built on white supremacy. We must end these violent crimes that are being committed against Americans. I don't care if you're a citizen or not. I don't care. It doesn't matter. You should not be thrown into a for-profit detention center where you might get raped if you're a woman. Where even before you get into that detention center, you might get beaten if you're a child. Where women get snatched away from their babies. The only place that you've seen anything like what ICE is doing is in the Middle East, because ICE has been trained by the negative. And the sad reality is, our politicians in Washington are deaf to this horrible injustice that's happening here at home and here abroad. And we need people of conscience in Washington. And that's why I'm doing it. Because, the fact that an ICE agent, does anyone know what an ICE agent's signing bonus is right now?
$50K.
$50,000. It's well documented. You know what a starting salary is for an ICE agent? It's in the 6 figures. Higher than what you said, bro. It's higher than $80. They make 6 figures to start out. And you know what a teacher gets as a signing bonus?
Not paid, not paid.
If they're lucky, they look at $1,000. And you know what their starting salary is? They won't even make it. Yeah, you're right, 40. It's less than $50,000, less than the signing bonus of an ICE agent. So where are our priorities as a country? Where are our priorities as a country? The problem is we have establishment politicians like Julie Johnson and Colin Allred who say things like we can reform ICE, that we can somehow fix these systems that are broken, that are built on white supremacy, that are built on the wrong principles, that continue to send aid to commit genocides in our name. We need people of conscience. And that's why I'm proud to be sitting here next to Heli, because I believe that we're going to go to Congress together and fight for progressive values and really change this country. But Heli, I want to hear your origin story. Some folks might know, but a lot of folks don't. I'd love to hear it.
So much for sharing. Both of y'all's stories, again, incredible. So yeah, a little bit, it's my story, man. So, backstory. So my family members come from Mexico. My grandmother and my mom and all her family grew up in Fort Worth in the South Side. So, Worth Heights area. And my grandmother actually attended one of these Mexican schoolhouses that they used to have back in the day. So not only did they have the Black school, they had the Mexican schoolhouses too across the Southwest. And in those days, they would draw a dot on the chalkboard, and it's less spoken in Spanish. And they put your nose to it for the rest of the day. And like just torture. And she didn't finish 5th grade. So from that, a lot of us, didn't end up speaking Spanish, right? Because we were told, hey, to get along, to assimilate, to not get hurt or murdered or anything like that, right? To not speak Spanish. So that's one side, right? But then my grandmother, she ended up becoming an activist. And after her husband died from the Vietnam War, that'll radicalize you, right? When you're four girls by yourself and you're widowed. So she went into activism and whatnot. My mom met my dad in Fort Worth, and he came from all the way in Mexico. He came over here to work, and eventually was working at the pecan farm in Stephenville, and started his own small business and whatnot. And Stephenville is a lot different than Fort Worth. So me growing up there and having this background, like, hey, my dad's from Monterrey, Mexico. My grandmother's an activist, right? And, you know, but in Stephenville, everyone's Republican. All the leaders are Republican. And they all the business folks, the teachers, the police, you know, all the different folks are kind of from this more conservative background that, hey, we work, the message was we work hard and we don't ask for handouts. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's a lot of people that, right? And without knowing, again, the underlying stuff that the Republican Party has been doing. And leaving college, you know, I ended up in an abusive relationship, and being in Stephenville with the lack of education, the lack of, it was, I just knew that education was the only way out. And that's what my grandma always told me too. And so, again, I wasn't involved in politics. I'm like, I just got to get out of Stephenville, you know, and just try to be successful, right? Just get by. And end up 2009 recession, I graduate from A&M, have my nice degree, and I'm working at Northeast Mall at Express, crying at night because I'm paying student loans and I don't have a job. I've been laid off 2 different times because it was 2009 when I graduated. Recession, 2000, all of that, right? And so, hey, after being laid off twice, a friend of a friend, hey, we're starting this little startup out in California. Didn't know anything about tech startups, none of that. So, hey, I just lost the job again. Hey, I'm gonna go. So go out there, and it's like me and a bunch of boys, very early stage startup stuff, right? And we're building this company that's helping small business owners connect with their customers to compete with the Starbucks, right? Starbucks can have engineers that build, you know, just hey, I'll message you, you know, on your birthday and things like that. A small business can't do that. So a lot of us were genuinely trying to help small businesses, and we grew to first 10 people, and we became over 500 people across the country. From that, you know, we had over, you know, 50 million users using our software platform, you know, with the businesses, right? And again, it's those customers were the businesses customers. And so while that was going on, this was in 2010 through 2000, essentially 20 was when we were out there. And during that time, in the early parts, Facebook was the place to work. Google, the place to work. You know, that was like, hey, you can get your startup to go that big, that's what you want, right? And while we are all looking up to people like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon, and because we're trying to build something, we're changing the world, we're bringing democracy everywhere. You know, we're letting people in Iran, you know, the women there get education because of the internet and social media. But behind the scenes, Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg and these types are like, if authoritarian leaders are willing to pay to hide information from people, that they're good with that. And when it comes to who wins elections, it didn't matter who. It's about money and power with these people. And again, these algorithms, even when there was a genocide in Myanmar, the reason they just turned on all these other countries with having no moderators who knew the languages. Just hey, as many users as possible, growth at all costs, who cares? Even if we don't know what's being said online. So this is like this stuff that's been going on behind the scenes. And tech companies, and again, the incentive structures, and again, I saw it because I had that early stage startup. It came out of Y Combinator, and Y Combinator is Sam Altman, who was the co-founder of OpenAI, was the president of Y Combinator. So again, he was seen as someone who was genuinely trying to help founders. But again, behind the scenes, just letting our kids get hurt with these algorithms, the addictiveness, our kids are losing cognitive, like their attention spans are gone, right? We also have, where people are being led into suicide because they're chatting with these chatbots. And they're telling them, since, oh, actually, they're validating everything they're saying. Oh, don't tell your parents, just keep this between us. Like, this stuff is really happening. And when we don't have people in tech, who understand this stuff to go in office and legislate against it, this is how these things keep getting worse. So not only did I see, again, all of this different stuff happening, and wanted to make change, and then the pandemic happened too, right? And 2016 happened, and the insurrection happened. All this different stuff was going on, and I was living out in California and watching this. And when we went through bankruptcy because of my beauty business went under, one of my startups, it was just a nightmare in 2020, and I had a newborn, and I had no childcare. I was shoved out of the workforce. Like so many today, there's no childcare access. It's impossible to find. It's so expensive. And there's great people who want to work and can provide to our economy, and we can't. So it was the childcare costs. It was the healthcare, when, hey, not working anymore. Oh, we got to go on Cobra. How much is this going to cost? Whether you have insurance or not, it's costing an arm and a leg. I was quoted with insurance, quoted $5,000 to pay for an MRI. Did I get that? No, of course I didn't. Who has that kind of money just sitting around? So it was just like one thing after another, and we kept running people in my home state of Texas, right? That were status quo, just totally fine with status quo, not speaking truth to power. And so, yeah, I just got tired enough. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go big. Hey, I started startups before. I helped start a couple different multi-million-dollar companies. I'm gonna go run for U.S. Senate. The Democratic Party's gonna be so pumped for this young Latinas, who are successful entrepreneurs. Oh, we're progressive. We want to get healthcare and childcare. And I was like, oh, no, don't run. Colin Arben's running. He has $2 million. All the Democrats are taking money to run. And it's like, y'all cannot be telling young women in this state who our rights are getting taken away by the second to not run for office. And like I said, I grew up in Stephenville where I was having to get a ride to Planned Parenthood in Fort Worth at 15 because I'm being abused. And there's so many young girls like that, and young boys getting abused, that this is happening, and there's nowhere to go. Like, my friends, was pregnant. A baby that's wanted for babies was developed without a skull. And the doctors couldn't help her, they'll give you a phone number. And so then, she ended up going to the state, and that's traumatic in itself. And then, she already has fluids and all this stuff, and just complications. She comes back to Texas, goes back to work, because, hey, we all got work. She almost bleeds out in the bathroom in Houston at work. So, again, it's just constant. So we're not stopping. And again, I was told not to run, I did it anyway. And while I didn't win, I helped push us to be talking about the progressive things, and that's why we're here today. And again, we kept doing the work, like Perla was saying, with Taylor Remmen's campaign. We were out there knocking doors, like, who cares? We all got to let all this stuff aside and just knock doors and tell people, again, we're just trying to get healthcare and childcare and get these billionaires to pay their fair share for it. It's out of control. Our elections are being bought by them. Elon Musk spent $290 million last cycle. It's disgusting. And we have to get our campaign finance laws changed. We got to get the John Lewis Voting Rights Act pushed through. Just getting basic education on when to vote and who's on the ballot. So yeah, that's a very long story. But there's just so many pieces of all. Sorry, tell me. But yeah, so those are more stories. Thank you so much for sharing the stories. Because again, I think it's important that people see how we got here and why it's so important. But you did mention very, briefly about AI and technology. And one of the reasons I was so interested in talking and bringing Zeeshan up here is because he worked at Microsoft and Google as a lawyer. So he, also saw some different, stuff going on in this company, I'm sure. And I was just interested to hear like your perspective on, these bigger tech companies and how we're going to regulate them, and what you saw while you were working.
Absolutely. I look forward to answering it. I think Rosa is also monitoring the chats. No. It was the chats because she's monitoring if anyone has a question online or if anyone has a question in the audience. We'll feel free to make it as interactive as possible. So Rosa, just let us know if you get any questions from the audience online. Now, when it comes to AI and technology, data, privacy, there was a time where Google had this saying that was "do no evil."
Right.
That was what Google was known for.
They took it away. I remember this. Was it 2015, 16?
That's actually around the time when I used to work at Google. So and back then, they were very strongly in this philosophy of do no evil. It was a core philosophy of the company. And now, if you look at the big tech companies, I don't know if you can say that about any of them. Unfortunately, it is the reality. It's almost as though they've changed it to do as much evil as you can, as much as you can get away with. Because what big tech has done is they've gone and they've bought our politicians. Look at the amount of money that each of the big tech billionaires gave to Donald Trump for his inaugural fund. And then look what happened when they all came together for that dinner with Donald Trump. And each of them just kept saying, "Thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you, Donald Trump. We love you, Donald Trump." These are the same people that when Donald Trump first came into office in 2016, they were some of his big supporters. Because back then, these companies actually believed in do no evil. And so the issue is, for those that can't tell, we have a train that comes in here next to us. By the way, Rosie, you were wrong about what you said. The train has come in quite a few times. Rosie told me that the train was knocking down. Train's come in multiple times for sure. So I think what you're seeing today is that big tech is not being regulated. Technology still does a lot of great things for us. Technology is something that we cannot say is evil in itself. The problem is how technology is used. And one of the things that I'm advocating for, and one of the things I'm championing, is called a digital bill of rights. And Heli, I'd love for you to co-sign onto this platform position. The idea of the digital bill of rights is to protect the American people from big tech. And what that includes is privacy protections. So currently, if you live in Europe, you have something called GDPR. So GDPR, any company, including Google and Microsoft, and other companies that I've worked in, when we work with any company that has customers in Europe, we have to build in extra privacy protections into any product that we give. Because Europe actually believes in protecting the privacy of its citizens. Then there's data protections, protecting your data, not owning your data, not selling off your data to the highest bidder, not utilizing your data against you, not giving your data to the government. Not, you should have ownership of your data, and your data should be safe and secure. And number three, and the biggest thing that digital rights will do is protect us against the dangers of AI. And when I say the dangers of AI, I'm not talking about Terminator, okay? That's not what I mean. AI has a number of malignant things that it's being used for. Not only is it preying on children, we see what Roth has recently done in its visualization algorithms. The fact that ChatGPT and others take all of the information that you provide them and build profiles on you based off of all the chats that you have, which they can then use against you. The fact that
Remember Super Bowl commercials where they have like the dog and say, "Oh, hey, the ring cameras can now scan. Oh, we're gonna help you find your dog." And now they're
Yeah, there was many
So, good point. I think she's just like throwing me softballs right here so I can knock it out of the park. So these spot cameras and ring cameras are now being utilized by ICE. ICE has been using this data to track individuals and go after and kidnap and attack our American people. We saw what happened with Palantir. Palantir is one of the most dangerous companies that exist. They are literally arming the police state, the mass surveillance state. Palantir is being used by ICE to spy on us. Unfortunately, the person I'm running against, Julie Johnson, sitting on the Committee on Homeland Security, has profited off of Palantir while negotiating with Palantir. That to me is wrong. That to me is unacceptable. That to me is something that we should not allow. She has made $4.2 million in congressional stock trades in her first year in Congress. Now, luckily, she recently signed on to the congressional stock trading ban, but I think it's a little too late. She already profited off of Palantir, which is literally profiting off the blood of our American people because we see what ICE is doing. So when I say we have to create privacy protections, it's protections from the police, mass surveillance, and what's happening. It's something that can scare us, but at the same time, with proper regulations, technology can be great. But right now, big tech is avoiding any regulations because of the fact that they have so much. I think you had a question.
Yes, one of the things I'm really loving about the new candidates of this era, which gives me hope and salvation, hopefully. I'm 72 this year, and I'm not your tech savvy, but I'm having scammed off of social media as something I looked at. And I found out I could be charged for 8 weeks in a row, $8. And I didn't know where it was coming from. It was something I looked at. It was an app that I looked at. And getting out of it took forever. It took me days because I couldn't find anybody. They kept sending me back to an AI customer service rep. They kept giving me the runaround. And so finally I got to a link where I could get it shut down. My bank couldn't do it also. They had to find the stores where I signed up for the first time. And I saw just on TV yesterday, watching the Senate hearings, that $17 billion in profits are made off of scams, off of social media. We don't have those protections in place. So I think tax laws would be enacted, protect us as consumers, our privacy, our children, our grandchildren. There are so many things that are a full ride for a lot of people to abuse us, exploit us, and cause death.
Yeah, I think I'll just quickly summarize what she said. Sister, 72 years old. I can't believe you're 72 years old. She just told us a great story about the fact that she somehow bought an app she didn't realize she bought. She'd been paying $8 a week for it for the last 8 weeks. And then when she tried to unsubscribe from the app, she got stuck in what I call chatbot hell. Where the chatbots try to, not really solve her problem for her and try to use AI to solve her problem, but they don't actually solve it. So the protections need to be there. So I think there's another element of it, which you just brought up, which is the fact that we have to have proper protections for consumers. Because the reality is, and this is something that's been preying on senior citizens. I have been speaking to a lot of seniors. I've met with folks in Terra quite a few times.
We're the boomers.
The boomers, exactly. The boomers.
Our grandkids have to help us get out of it.
The grandkids have to help. Well, in reality, the government should help.
Yeah.
The reality is the government's job is to serve and protect the people. So the government should have protections in place. There should be consumer bureaus that protect. Luckily, you only have to pay $8 over 8 weeks, which is $64. I've heard from seniors that have lost thousands and thousands of dollars. Some who have lost their entire life savings due to scams, fraud, and everything else that's happening over the internet. And the reality is the government should be protecting the people from this. I think you were saying something. You want to hop in?
Yeah, you're saying the digital bill of rights. I just think everybody needs to go through basic digital citizenship, right? Like we need to know how to act online and like we act in human, serve in real life. But when we're going to the AI centers, I am a huge advocate for climate action. This year, Carbon endorsed my campaign last cycle. But I know if you guys can explain it to everybody how much water usage and resources that we're using while everybody's making a cute little picture with the chat GPT or AI. I'm like, those are resources that we're killing our natural earth so you can have this cute little photo. So I try to advocate against using AI for graphics, anything that you're using it for, just for little fun stuff. Just so you are aware, it costs a lot of resources, natural resources for those things to function. And I know that a lot of communities aren't okay with the data centers coming by because of the resources, because of just, I know a lot of businesses move from California to Texas because they're not regulated as much. When it comes to environmental action and things like that. So just your guys' take on the AI and the environment.
You want to take this first? Right.
So yes, a lot of our energy costs are going up because of these data centers. Because again, it's just, and these data centers, a lot of times, the reason Abbott and all of these guys want to bring it this is, oh, hey, construction jobs, oh, hey, jobs. But those jobs are temporary. Once it's built, you just have babysitters for these machines to make sure they maintenance but again, the amount of energy that these places are using for not the good jobs and the water. Again, like I mentioned earlier, Dinosaur Valley Park, they're about to put one over there. And these are hurting our, again, our natural beauty of Texas. So yeah, just the one other thing I wanted to mention, just because it blew my mind when I heard about this. So in China right now, they even have these factories that are called dark factories, where basically they have, again, robots and whatnot, and have these warehouses, and they don't even have to have electricity for the lights, but they have electricity, they can run their robots and stuff in pure darkness, but they run 24/7. These workers, they're not working, they don't have breaks, they don't, because it's machines, so again, we have to be thinking long term, obviously about the environmental effects, like even wasn't Tesla just the other day, like dumping wastewater, like black wastewater into the ground. There's the climate issues. There's also just the energy sucking of, again, we're paying so much, not only the energy costs, housing costs, it all adds up. And these data centers, we need technology, but we have to regulate and pump the brakes on this stuff so that we're not, again, we're going to run out of water, guys. It's real life.
Well, I think one, if Carlos is watching, Carlos is my digital director, he loves what you just said because he always says he'll never use ChatGPT to create anything because he's afraid of I think 6 bottles of water that he says are created by that. So I'm sure he brought a smile to his face. But it brings up something. When we talk about food and nutrition, there's a nutritional label on every item that you buy in America. What if it was an energy label on every time you use ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini that tells you how much environmental impact that you're about to make when you utilize that AI? There are things like this that could actually make an impact and make people think twice. And and then aside from that, let's talk about data centers, since that's something where I've spent a decade working in data centers. I will say data centers are something that are going to be a part of our economy. But that doesn't mean we allow data centers to continue as it is. One, there's been a complete lack of regulation of data centers. And what that means is if we had regulation of data centers, it could be done much better than how it's being done today. Number one, environmental impact statements. It's never done anymore. It's the environmental impact study done every single time there's a data center. Number two, impact studies on the local community with local community involvement. Usually, data centers target Black and Brown communities, rural areas where people are not expected to be politically involved and will say anything about what's happening. Well, there needs to be proper methods. Number three, any big tech company, that means 2 companies I worked at, Microsoft and Google, Amazon and others that rely on data center technology should be investing in clean data centers. There are much better data center technologies that could be out there if, starting with the cloud revolution, we actually were investing in more environmentally friendly data centers. The reality is, even in 2015, when I first started working at Microsoft, working on Azure, they had launched their first underwater data center that was supposed to be way better for the environment. They stopped working on that because it was way more expensive and more difficult to actually invest in that technology. And the lack of regulation allowed them to work on data centers that were much cheaper for them to build and much worse for the environment. If people actually came into politics that understood technology, people like Heli, people that have worked in technology, maybe we would have a better opportunity of protecting ourselves from the dangers of it. So when you look at the average age of your congressperson, they definitely didn't grow up with data centers. And they probably don't even understand that completely, to be honest. Yes, another question.
Since you're
Comment.
running for Congress, and hopefully Powell one day, what about term limits and getting money out of politics? And they should have the same insurance as the rest of us.
So 3 questions. 1, term limits, getting money out of politics, and insurance for politicians versus the average person, correct? Number 1, term limits, yes, not just for politicians, but also for the Supreme Court. I
Yes,
think the Supreme Court acts with no accountability, they're just doing basically whatever they want because they know they're in there for life. That is the end right. Number 2, money in politics. And Citizens United, no more corporate PACs, no more APAC. You know, we don't need foreign governments controlling and buying our politicians. Is that right?
exactly.
This brother right here, remind me of your name again? Travis has launched this amazing petition, which I hope everyone who's watching and everyone who's here signs on to, which is to get the Democratic Party to prevent AIPAC from being involved in any of our politics. It needs to be cleaned out. Number 3, great work, by the way. Number 3, your point on insurance for Congressmen. I think that we should have Medicare for all.
Medicare for all.
And if we had Medicare for all, that solves the problem. And tell those politicians, don't give us Medicare for all. Well, they don't get the best insurance in the world for no cost. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I know you're running for Congress too. Isn't that what I heard?
Yes, so universal healthcare that's not attached to any employer. Not only does it help the average person, anybody who's, again, we all switch jobs sometimes, things happen, whatever. Or you become a mom and you need to be at home, whatever it is, right? But even small businesses aren't able to hire because can't offer their employees health insurance, like bar workers, retail workers, nail salon workers. I used to have a nail salon and beauty startup. Like, as much as I wanted to give them health insurance, like the margins are so tiny. And so it's like, I couldn't even get insurance for myself, right? And so it's like, if we had universal healthcare, it would help small businesses. What big corporate companies like doing open enrollment? No one, nobody, everyone hates open enrollment. So like, if we just have Medicare for all, again, it needs to be beefed up. It's not perfect. But yeah, that would solve everything. And it can be paid for with billionaire taxes, wealth taxes. So like, again, this isn't a new concept. Like, whatever, the first 10 million you make every year, do whatever you want with it. Buy your dog, buy your house, whatever. But every dollar after that will take 2 cents off of it. Like, and we can pay for healthcare, childcare. There's 300 billionaires in this country. We're the same ones buying our elections. And again, taking jobs away with AI. Oh, immigrants aren't taking jobs. It's going to be AI. Like, you're not going to be paying an immigrant, you're going to be paying a machine, which actually just goes into Elon Musk's pocket, Bezos's pocket, Zuckerberg's pockets. So we got to make sure, again, if we just tax them, all this that they have done, and a lot of the chaos and damage around the world is because of these guys, they got to pay. And they're going to pay for it.
So one thing I want to add here, though, is people don't realize the major cost in healthcare in this country has nothing to do with actually doctors doing actual medicine. It's insurance companies. And it's the insurance companies that have bought our politicians through their many United Healthcares. I mean, the United Healthcare is the reason why Julie Johnson for so long didn't sign on to Medicare for All, and just recently, jumped away from it to sign on to it. But the fact of the matter is, it's insurance companies, the middlemen, that are making billions and billions of dollars off of our healthcare. And it's the second part of it is healthcare costs would go down so far if everyone had access to actual healthcare. That means that you can go see a primary care physician. When you go see a primary care physician regularly, you're going to go to the ER way less times. And the major cost on healthcare in this country is because people that are uninsured or underinsured end up going to ERs because they do not have access to healthcare. Healthcare should not be a privilege in this country. We are the richest and supposed to be the best country in the world. We need to start acting like it. Healthcare should be a right in this country, just like it's a right in Europe, and just like it's a right everywhere else. And one of the things, Heli, you mentioned was people say we can't afford it. People can't say we can't afford universal healthcare, universal child care, free public education at the university, paid maternity leave. People, we cannot afford affordable housing. Well, the things that we just mentioned, the country that we're sending billions and billions and billions of our dollars to commit genocide, Israel, gives all 5 of those things to its citizens for free. So if they can do it and take our money to kill people, I think we can stop giving their money to kill people and spend money to take care of our people. I think that's what we should do.
Yeah, so I know you guys are talking federal law, like that's cool, you guys are doing great things, and I'm like, on the county level, what we can do here locally for people who live here, our friends. No, I've thought about this a lot. One of the interviews with the unions, the service employee workers, they asked me, how would you help? And I'm like, at a county level, if we have more affordable childcare, you get more people into the workforce, but you're also keeping money local. You can develop different places, but you're always going to prioritize that childcare workforce, right? So that mothers can come back to the workforce. But I also was remembering when I worked for the law firm, they paid for my health insurance for me and my son. That was such a burden that I didn't have to think about. And I was so grateful. And that is rare. You will rarely go to an employer that pays your insurance 100%. Anybody here ever had that? Rare, right? So it's almost like this unicorn that I was chasing after that, because I was like, no, they supported me. Why are these bigger companies not supporting their employees? So on the county level, I would definitely have the minimum wage for a county employee to be $25 an hour, because we need to live in dignity. And if you are working for the county, you should have pride in going to work for your community, right? So a minimum of $25 an hour, and I would have the county pay insurance. So that would be thousands of county employees or hundreds of employees that would have that burden taken off their table so that they can send their kids to good schools, go get proactive medical care so they're not dying before they go seek medical care, right? Just being proactive about it, getting your blood work done, going to see your doctor when you do feel something off, whether just delaying it because you know it's going to be financial ruin. If you go to the hospital for the MRI, for the blood work, for the Tylenol that they give you in the ER, you're going to have these costs. So at the county level, if I can at least start you off on a good salary, take that insurance burden off of these families in our county, you will start seeing a county that's healthier, that's happier. Our money is going to stay local because they don't need to leave Tarrant County for specialists. We have great hospitals here in Tarrant County. We're not supporting the mental health like we're supposed to be. JPS, again, the youth, we're not investing in youth activity centers. Like when I look at my son, I'm like, they don't go hang out at the mall anymore, right? If we went to go watch movies and walked around the wall, they don't do that. They don't have parks that you would ride your skateboard and your bicycle down to and hang out all afternoon until the sun goes down. They're in the house, at their jobs, or at school. So we definitely need more family-friendly, free activities for here in Tarrant County so that our youth have somewhere to go that's safe. They're being proactive. They're hanging out, meeting new community members. So developing public health at the county level, but insurance, if y'all can fix it on the universal level or Medicare for all, I wouldn't have to do this, but on the county level, instead of spending millions of dollars on those lawsuits, we could spend thousands, so a lot less just on health insurance to cover families. Yes.
I suppose this could go for all three of you, but do you think it's better to promote universal healthcare versus expansions to the ACA?
Do we think it's better to do Medicare for all or expand the ACA?
Correct.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Well, I think that when I get to Congress, I will be pushing for Medicare for all. But on the way to getting to Medicare for all, we cannot just rely on the current ACA system because it's broken. And it's been gutted in many ways by the Republican administration. As a stopgap, I would support ways to make ACA better. But I would be fighting every day to fight for Medicare for all because that should be the goal. But I'm not going to go to Congress saying I'm going for expanding ACA. I'm going to Congress to get Medicare for all and universal healthcare because that's what we need. That's going to be the real solution to what's happening. Does that mean that if there was a vote to make ACA better in the meantime while we figured out how to get Medicare for all set up, would I support it? Absolutely, it makes sense. You got to work there. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to compromise before I get to Congress. Compromises will be made once we get to Congress when we have to. And there's certain issues where you can compromise to get to where you need to be because everyone realizes we need to get to a point where healthcare is a right in this country and everyone has healthcare. That's something we all agree on. There are certain things we will not compromise on. Things like we need to end the police state. We need to abolish ICE. We need to repeal qualified immunity for ICE officers as well as any other police officer, any agent that commits any crime in this country. There should not be a two-tier justice system. I will not compromise on saying that we need to get AIPAC out of our politics. I will not compromise on saying we need to end the genocide and block bombs to go to Gaza. There are certain things I will not compromise on, but other things we can find a way forward because we have to be pragmatic progressives.
Yes, I love that. So yes, I 100% same thing where if we gotta vote to make something a little bit better, sure, but that's not our intention.
Yeah.
Our intention is to, again, get more of us in office so that we have more to push this through. So I know that we're like running on time, so we've been here for a little while, this is great, but we have questions. So I want to get some questions from you. You've asked what?
This is important for Perla. Perla,
Okay.
politics is local.
Yes.
You, the county, controls the voting in this county for over 20 cities.
Yes.
We are seeing our voting sites, our polls reduced, and they're taken away from college. So they're keeping us from voting. They're kicking us out of commissioner meetings. What do you plan to do to fix that?
Question for you, Perla, is voting sites have been significantly decreased by them, and I think you're talking about the Republicans. What will you do at the county level to prevent this and increase access to voting?
Yes, thank you for the question. So in Tarrant County, it started with simple little attacks to fair elections. They started with, if you were a BDR, so if you're registered voters, you cannot register voters inside of our public agencies, right? So if it's raining outside, who cares? You have to stay outside. You cannot register voters inside of county buildings. So we went and we fought and advocated and saying, hey, these are, state registered people who are doing the job, but for fair elections. So then they voted to allow them in, right? So that was one little barrier. The next time that we went, they were shutting the polling locations, right? And it was led by Manny Ramirez, now Matt Krause. At that time, it was Gary Finkles who slept the entire time. He should have retired a long time ago. He was sleeping the entire time up there. And our hateful judge, Tim O'Hare. So they were advocating for closing polls. They bullied our election administrator, Clint Ludwig. He is a veteran, and I have utmost respect for any veteran, so thank you for anybody who's ever served. But they treated him with so much disrespect that they bullied him to give the county a smaller list of polling locations, right? You find whatever excuse that you need to find that polling location is no longer valid, whether there's not enough people showing up to that location, to there's fraudulent claims or anything, right? So he just wanted excuses to close polling locations. So Clint came back and he had a reduced list, right? They wanted to close UTA of all places where students are voting. So it's definitely voter suppression, voter oppression tactics in Tarrant County. And then it went to a next level, right? They hired this Republican law firm who was actually in charge of helping Trump try to overturn the election in 2020. So Tarrant County entered into hundreds of thousands of dollars in contract with this law firm who's trying to overturn the elections. They were at that time looking for voter rules so that they could purge people from the elections. And then that's when the gerrymandering started. They held limited town halls. They didn't care to listen, right? They did it as a formality to let us talk about how angry we were about the gerrymandering. They did it anyways because they have control of commissioner's court at this point. That's why it's important to elect Alyssa Simmons. That's why it's important to elect myself for County Commissioner Precinct 4. So that when we have these votes on polling locations, you can vote for the best interest of the county, which at the time, I was doing legal research on, precedent, right? This is unprecedented. Like, we've never seen this before. But I was doing the case laws of like, this is what we voted before. This is what the election laws are in Texas. So definitely researching election laws and doing what you're supposed to do is how I'll start by fighting that. But also building those relationships with those businesses, with those schools, with those libraries, because these are the people that host our elections, right? And none of our commissioners are out there. Well, I'll say the North commissioners are not out there building relationships with polling locations. They're closing polling locations. They don't care to build those relationships. So I'll definitely be building relationships with the schools, with more churches, more libraries, more community centers, anywhere that we can host elections, we should be building those. So fighting for more elections or for more polling locations, but also with the gerrymandering, I would use a non-biased attorneys, right? And do actual participation, actual surveys, actual input from our communities, whether they wanted that or not, right? Everybody's like, nobody asked for this. Like, nobody asked for this. And then we had to pay millions in lawsuits to protect the county because obviously it's unconstitutional. And then we saw that movement go to the state, right? The state of Texas. And then we saw it go national with California doing it as well. So I would definitely be more protective of the county when it comes to more contracting. That's the commissioner's job, right? So the contracts that we're approving, definitely, I'm gonna do my due diligence and see who the contractors are for the infrastructure, who we're hiring to protect the county, who we're doing all these things with, but definitely with community involvement and fight for fair elections. So more polling locations, more BDRs, allowing them to use county buildings, educating, Heli mentioned this earlier, actually have the election administrator's office in charge of this, but they should be doing more public service announcements. We should be knowing what races are coming up, who are on the races, with their websites, completely non-biased, right? Like, it doesn't matter, just put the information on paper and send it to the community so that the community is educated and aware of the elections that affect them on a day-to-day basis. So on a county level, there's so many things we can do better, and that's why I'm running, because they're not doing that.
So probably give it to you. We'll ask these two questions and then maybe we'll take one from online and we'll call it a day. Rest we'll get one question from online. Go ahead.
I've noticed there's a common thread between some of your narratives. Having to go to Planned Parenthood due to abuse at a young age, Gaza, big tech criminality. Who had a meeting with big tech around the time that you were talking about, 2016? Who invested tens of millions of dollars in Valor Ventures, Peter Thiel's hedge fund? Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes. Yes.
What are you guys going to do to hold the billionaires that and whoever is co-conspirators complicit in the crimes of this man accountable?
Yes.
So the question is, what are you going to do about the people that have profited from all this, the Epstein class? What are you going to do to hold those people accountable? You want to go first?
I mean, again, we have to win these elections because right now, if we don't, like, they're in power. And we have to get people to come out and vote because until we're in there, they're just going to keep doing a lawless thing. So obviously, once we're in there, again, we got to get rule of law back in order. Obviously, we absolutely have to just, again, clean house. And I think there was something that was pushed through, or there's people putting forward some new legislation that is basically removing the statute of limitations, so that it's not even like no matter how long, what time has passed, to not protect these predators. So again, pushing for those types of things, 100% gotta be these elections. So gotta make sure you go out and vote. Early voting starts next week.
The reality is the Epstein class has allowed themselves to stay in power. The Epstein classes were using themselves to stay in power. We have watched the establishment Democrats fail the American people. If the establishment Democrats were actually doing their jobs, the files would finally be released.
Yes.
That is a shame that the establishment Democrats, led by Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, cannot get something done that's already been approved. We need people with spines in Congress, people that are going to stand up to the Epstein class. The reality is, I wouldn't be surprised if Chuck Schumer's in there somewhere. I'm not going to be surprised if some of his Democratic buddies are in there somewhere. And to me, I don't care if you have a D next to your name or an R next to your name. If you're in the Epstein files, you better be prosecuted.
Yeah.
We need to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
Public trials, absolutely, Perla. Public trials. We need to release all the Epstein files immediately, and we need to hold each and every criminal accountable. And that starts with the pedophile who's sitting in the White House and every single one of the pedophiles that are around him.
Protect the survivors.
You can actually not only impeach the president, but you can impeach your entire administration. And the Epstein files are actually going to allow us to take down this entire corrupt administration in one fell swoop as soon as those files are released. And when I get to Congress, I'm going to do everything I can to get those files released and get justice for all those poor girls that have been abused, manipulated, and taken advantage of by these sick Epstein class of public officials. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, support the survivors. We believe the women. Yeah, and it was boys, girls, women. Like I'm sure families have been intimidated and bullied. Like it has been classism, right? How we're saying taking it back from the billionaires. The billionaires have thought that they can get away with this stuff with zero accountability, with zero public trials. So we're facing right now the moment, right? Are we going to meet the moment and elect mediocre, moderate candidates, or are we going to elect people who are going to fight for working class Texans, working class Americans? Because you guys, again, are going to work with everybody to get the job done. So thank you guys for being here. I think we're done with questions, but if you want to close out.
No, good.
Close.
Did we have one? Okay,
Talk to you.
we are done. Last comment, Heli, and we are done for the night.
Hey, I just want to remind everybody, early voting starts February 17th. Tuesday. So please tell everybody you know. Sure, post on social media, but talk to people. That is how we won Taylor's race, was purely by talking to people at grocery stores, at coffee shops, at laundromats, at tumbling gyms. Doesn't matter. Tell a friend, bring a friend, vote. February 17th is when early voting starts. Election day is March 3rd. And yeah, we're excited to have you there. And also, helifortexas.com. Make sure you please go there. And if you have some moolah, send it. If you don't. Take care of your family. Take care of yourself. But if you have some moolah, we need some money to print out some more leave behind so we can go knock doors with them.
No, I'm actually going to tell you, remind everyone your website. Julio's looking at me, reminding me to do it. ZeeshanForTexas.com. You can sign up to volunteer if you're knocking doors. If you're too far away, you can make phone calls. You can contribute. Julio always says this: time, talent, treasure. This is the election of our lifetime. We are fighting up against authoritarianism. We're fighting up against fascism. We have to meet the moment. We have to meet the moment. And it is your responsibility, if you want to save the American democracy, if you believe it's worth saving, now is the time to wake up. Because if you don't wake up now, there might not be anything left to wake up to. And one day you will be asked, in 2026, when the American democracy was about to fall apart, when authoritarians were trying to take over this government, when they tried to make this into a fascist state, what did you do in 2026? Your grandkids, your great-grandkids, your nieces, your nephews will ask you what you did. And just make sure you have a good answer. So if you want to get involved, ZeeshanForTexas.com, will take time, talent, and treasure, will be a part of the movement. Help get Heli elected, help get Perla elected, help get bold progressives elected all across the country. Perla?
Thank you. So once again, my name is Perla Bojorquez. I'm running for Tarrant County Commissioner in Precinct 4. It is all northwest of Tarrant County. Please go to my website, perlafortexas.com. But thank you guys for being here. I'm going to talk to my friend. There's